When I saw the broke truck driver asking for just a small cup of coffee with his last $2 at Sullivan's truck stop, I knew I had to help him. My manager had just posted a new no free items policy, but Michael looked like he hadn't eaten in days. As a single mother, working to support my daughter, I understood what desperation looked like. You won't believe what happened next. I never expected getting fired for basic human kindness would lead to dozens of truckers showing up at my house with enough money to buy my own truck stop. Sometimes doing the right thing brings rewards we never imagined possible. Hi everyone, welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now, let's dive into today's story. The small two-bedroom apartment that Hannah Martin shared with her 8-year-old daughter Lily felt cramped every morning as they rushed through their routine in the 600 square feet they could barely afford in a quiet Denver suburb. At 29, Hannah had been working the early morning shift at Sullivan's truck stop on Highway 95, mile marker 142, for nearly 4 years since her husband's death in Afghanistan and the subsequent divorce papers that arrived 6 months after his funeral when his family contested his will. Hannah's current job at Sullivan's paid better than her previous minimum wage positions, but it still wasn't enough to support a growing child while saving for Lily's future education and the mounting bills that came with single parenthood. Every day, Hannah watched wealthy travelers spend more on snacks than she made in a shift, tipping modestly while she smiled and served them, secretly calculating how many extra hours she'd need to work just to afford Lily's school supplies and extracurricular activities. Lily, now in 2nd grade and excelling in her studies, had been the driving force in Hannah's life since her father's deployment when she was just 4 years old. Hannah had met her husband James during her brief college years before financial reality forced her to drop out and work full-time. When James was killed in action, Hannah insisted on creating the kind of loving, stable home that would honor his memory while giving Lily every opportunity to succeed despite their financial limitations. They spent every free moment making their small apartment feel like home, decorating with photos of James and creating study spaces where Lily could do homework while Hannah prepared for her next shift. Hannah worked tirelessly to maintain a positive attitude, refusing to let financial stress diminish the joy she found in watching her daughter grow into a bright, compassionate young woman. Tonight, after spending the afternoon helping Lily with a school project about American heroes, Hannah headed to Sullivan's for another early morning shift, wondering how much longer she could maintain this exhausting pace of working multiple jobs while being a present, engaged mother. She had no idea that this seemingly ordinary morning would bring an encounter that would test her character and ultimately transform their lives in ways she could never have imagined possible. Hannah Martin stood behind the counter at Sullivan's truck stop, refilling coffee makers and preparing for what looked like another busy morning on Highway 95. At 29, she had been working as a truck stop attendant for 4 years since her husband James was killed in Afghanistan, leaving her to raise their daughter Lily alone while navigating the complex grief of military widowhood. Hannah's husband had been deployed when Lily was just 4 years old, and his death had shattered the young family's dreams of building a life together. The military benefits helped, but they weren't enough to cover all expenses, forcing Hannah to work long hours while ensuring Lily received the love and attention she needed during such a difficult time. During her years at Sullivan's, Hannah had developed a reputation among the trucking community as someone who genuinely cared about the drivers who stopped for fuel, food, and rest. She remembered how everyone liked their coffee, asked about their families, and had a way of making even the most exhausted driver feel welcome and appreciated. Her grandfather had been a long-haul trucker, and Hannah had grown up hearing his stories about the brotherhood of the road and how truckers looked out for each other across the country. This background had given her deep respect for the profession and understanding of the challenges drivers faced during long hours away from their families. Hannah and Lily had been working to create a stable, happy life despite their financial limitations. They spent every free moment together, with Hannah helping with homework, attending school events, and ensuring that Lily felt loved and supported, even though money was often tight. On this particular morning, after spending the previous evening helping Lily with a school project about American heroes, Hannah arrived at Sullivan's for what she expected to be another routine shift, serving the early morning crowd of truckers heading across the western states. Hannah had noticed changes at Sullivan's since the company was sold to a corporate chain 6 months earlier. The new regional manager, David Brennan, had very different ideas about customer service and profit margins than the previous family-owned operation. Just yesterday, Hannah had seen a memo on his desk outlining a strict no complimentary items policy with termination threatened for any violations. Around 7:45 a.m., Hannah heard the distinctive wheeze of air brakes and the grinding sound of a transmission struggling to function properly. Through the window, she watched a weathered red Peterbilt lumber into the parking lot, black smoke trailing from its exhaust pipe. The truck shuddered to a complete stop, and the driver climbed down slowly, moving like every step caused physical pain. Michael Noonan looked like he had been driving for days without proper rest or nutrition. His flannel shirt was wrinkled and stained. His jeans were worn thin at the knees, and his steel-toed boots showed years of hard use. At 47, his brown hair was streaked with gray, and his green eyes held the hollow, desperate look of a man who had lost everything that mattered to him. He approached the counter with hesitant, uncertain steps, his calloused hands trembling slightly as he reached for his worn leather wallet and counted the meager bills inside. "Morning, Mom," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. I only got about $2 to my name. Could I maybe get just a small cup of coffee? The smallest size you have would be fine." Hannah studied Michael's face and immediately recognized what she had learned to identify over her years working with truckers, a man at the absolute end of his rope, trying desperately to maintain his dignity while facing impossible circumstances. His hands shook not from cold or caffeine withdrawal, but from hunger, stress, and the overwhelming weight of financial desperation. She glanced toward the office where she could see David Brennan watching through the window, his arms crossed, clearly waiting to pounce on any policy violation that would give him an excuse to demonstrate his authority over the staff. Without any hesitation, Hannah grabbed the largest cup they offered and filled it with their premium Colombian blend coffee. She wrapped up a breakfast sandwich from the warming display and slid both items across the counter toward Michael. "This sandwich is from yesterday's inventory," she said, meeting Michael's surprised and grateful gaze directly. "Company policy says we can't sell day-old food items, so I need to dispose of it anyway. And the coffee's on the house, family discount for drivers." Michael's weathered eyes filled with tears, and his voice cracked with emotion. "Ma'am, I can't possibly accept—" "Yes, you absolutely can," Hannah said firmly, her voice carrying the conviction of someone who had made peace with her decision despite the potential consequences. "Family takes care of family out here on the road. You just pay it forward when you're back on your feet, okay?" Before Michael could protest further or insist on paying, David Brennan's office door slammed open with enough force to rattle the glass. His face was flushed red with fury as he strode across the store, his expensive suit and polished shoes creating a stark contrast to the working-class atmosphere of the truck stop. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Martin?" he barked, pointing an accusatory finger at the coffee cup and sandwich that Michael was holding. "I just watched you give away company merchandise. Free food, free coffee. This is a business establishment, not a charity organization." Hannah's heart began racing, but she kept her voice steady and professional. "I used my own tip money, Mr. Brennan. I can pay the register for—" "Don't lie to my face," Brennan snapped, his voice rising loud enough to attract the attention of other customers throughout the store. "I saw you take that sandwich directly from inventory and pour that coffee without ringing up a single transaction. You're stealing from this company." "Sir, please," Michael interjected, his voice barely above a whisper, as he tried to diffuse the increasingly volatile situation. "She was just trying to help. You stay completely out of this," Brennan shot back aggressively. Then he turned his full attention back to Hannah, his voice rising to near shouting levels. "Clean out your personal belongings and get out of this building immediately. You're terminated, effective this moment." "Mr. Brennan, please reconsider," Hannah tried desperately, thinking immediately of Lily's school needs and their rent payment due the following week. "I've been working here for 4 years without any incidents. I don't care if you've been here for 40 years, Brennan interrupted harshly. "You violated clearly stated company policy. If you're not completely off these premises in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police to have you arrested for theft." The entire truck stop had fallen into uncomfortable silence. Big Eddie stood frozen with a coffee pot in his weathered hands. Maria Santos looked shocked from her booth by the front window. Tommy Chen had stopped mid-bite of his breakfast sandwich. Even the truckers visible outside through the windows had noticed the commotion and were watching the confrontation unfold. Hannah untied her work apron with visibly shaking hands. Her eyes filling with tears, she absolutely refused to let fall in front of her former boss. She thought about Lily waiting at home, about how she would have to explain why Mommy had lost her job for showing basic human compassion to someone in desperate need. As she walked toward the employee area to collect her personal belongings, Michael Noonan stood motionless like a statue, the untouched coffee and sandwich still in his trembling hands, the crushing weight of what had just happened because of his presence settling heavily on his conscience. Big Eddie was the first person to find his voice and break the oppressive silence. "Brennan," he said slowly and deliberately, setting down the coffee pot with careful, measured movements, "you just made the biggest mistake of your entire life." 15 minutes later, Hannah sat in her car in the parking lot, staring at her cell phone and trying to figure out how to update her resume on such short notice. How do you adequately explain being terminated for showing basic human kindness to someone in need? She was about to start her engine and drive home when she heard a familiar voice crackling over a CB radio that one of the truckers had left running with his windows down. "Breaker 19, this is Broken Arrow, and I need every single driver monitoring this channel to listen up right now." Hannah recognized Michael Noonan's distinctive voice. The angel of mile marker 142 just got fired for doing what angels do, showing mercy and compassion to someone who desperately needed it. "I want every driver, every dispatcher, every fleet manager, and every transportation company to know exactly what just happened at Sullivan's truck stop on Highway 95. Big Eddie's gruff voice immediately joined the conversation. "This is Rolling Thunder, and I can absolutely confirm every word. Hannah Martin just lost her livelihood for helping one of our own. 4 years of taking excellent care of all of us, and they terminated her employment for giving a hungry, broke driver some basic food and coffee." Hannah listened in complete amazement as the CB radio chatter exploded across multiple channels. Drivers throughout Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico began relaying the story, their voices filled with genuine outrage and unwavering determination to take action. Within 30 minutes, Hannah's phone started ringing continuously. First, her sister called from Phoenix, saying she had heard about the incident from a truck driver at a rest stop there. Then Channel 12 News called, requesting an interview about the situation. Local radio stations began calling for comment, and social media posts about the story started appearing from truckers across the western United States. When Hannah finally pulled into her driveway 2 hours later, she absolutely could not believe what she saw spread out before her. Dozens of 18-wheelers lined her quiet residential street, their chrome bumpers and polished fuel tanks gleaming brilliantly in the afternoon sunlight. Drivers she had known for years stood in her small front yard alongside complete strangers who had driven from Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and New Mexico. License plates from across multiple western states dotted the impressive makeshift convoy. Michael Noonan approached her car as she sat staring in complete disbelief at the unprecedented gathering. Word travels at lightning speed when someone hurts the guardian of mile marker 142, he said softly, his earlier desperation replaced by quiet strength and determination. We're road family, Hannah. We stick together through everything. Big Eddie stepped forward, his usually gruff demeanor replaced by something much gentler and more emotional. That corporate suit in there fired you for demonstrating basic human decency. Every single driver on Highway 95 knows your complete story now. By noon, every trucker from the Pacific Ocean to the Mississippi River knew exactly what happened. By 2 o'clock this afternoon, they started rolling toward Denver. A Channel 12 news van pulled up to the scene, and the reporter approached with her cameraman rolling footage. Michael stepped directly in front of the camera without any hesitation, his voice strong and clear as he addressed the viewing audience. This woman represents absolutely everything good and decent about America, he declared, with unwavering conviction. She's been taking care of truck drivers for 4 years, asking for nothing in return except basic respect. She got fired for treating a desperate, broken-down trucker with fundamental human dignity. Well, the trucking community takes excellent care of our own family members. Big Eddie handed Hannah a thick manila envelope with obvious weight. $43,000, he announced clearly, collected from drivers across 6 states, with additional money still coming in every hour from truckers who are hearing this story for the first time. This isn't charity or pity, Maria Santos added, stepping forward with a genuine smile. It's a business investment. Jerry Patterson is selling his established truck stop on Route 66. He says he'll sell directly to you at cost if you're genuinely interested in ownership. The bank called an hour ago. They're willing to finance the remaining amount thanks to all the positive public attention and community support. Hannah's hand flew to cover her mouth in shock. I can't possibly accept. Sure you can, Road Dog Pete grinned widely. Petro Corporation also called this morning. They want to offer you a regional management position overseeing multiple locations, but we're all hoping you'll choose to run your own independent operation instead. Just then, a black sedan pulled up behind the news van, and David Brennan climbed out, his earlier confidence and authority completely replaced by obvious desperation and panic. His face was noticeably pale as he attempted to push through the protective wall of truckers. Hannah, he called out weakly, trying to project authority he no longer possessed. Let's discuss this situation rationally. I can offer you a 20% salary increase, make you assistant manager with better benefits. Business revenue is down 80% since this morning, Big Eddie announced, loudly enough for the news cameras to capture. Seems like nobody wants to stop at Sullivan's truck stop anymore for some mysterious reason. Every driver, every dispatcher, every transportation company we work with, they all know exactly what you did to Hannah, Maria declared firmly. Sullivan's truck stop is completely blacklisted by the entire trucking industry. That's not something we forget or forgive easily. Hannah looked directly at Brennan, then at the faces of the men and women who had become her chosen family over 4 years of service, respect, and genuine care for their welfare and safety. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Brennan," she said with quiet dignity, "but I'll have to respectfully decline your proposal." Michael Noonan stepped forward again, his voice thick with genuine emotion and gratitude. "I need to tell everyone something important. That transmission problem I mentioned earlier, it turned out to be nothing more than a loose electrical connection. I fixed it myself in 20 minutes with basic tools. But that coffee and sandwich Hannah gave me, that was the first real food I'd had in 3 complete days." He paused, looking down at his worn boots before meeting Hannah's eyes directly. "I lost my wife Sarah to cancer last year. We spent every penny we had saved on experimental treatments, sold everything we owned of value. I've been living in my truck for 6 months, too ashamed and proud to ask anyone for help. Yesterday morning, I felt like absolutely nothing, just another broken-down driver that nobody cared about or would miss. But Hannah treated me like I mattered as a human being when I couldn't even treat myself with basic respect." He reached into his shirt pocket and carefully pulled out a small, well-worn CB radio with obvious sentimental value. This belonged to Sarah. She used to talk to other drivers' wives and families while I was on long-distance runs. "I want you to have it, Hannah, so you can always reach us whenever you need your road family." An older driver named Carl stepped forward, his weathered face showing deep emotion. "My granddaughter heard about this story on the evening news. She called me crying, saying it gave her hope that kindness and human decency still matter in this world." "That's the kind of positive legacy you've built, Hannah." Big Eddie clapped his large hands together decisively. "So, Hannah Martin, are you ready to be your own boss and run your own business?" Hannah looked around at the sea of faces, some familiar from years of friendship, some completely new but united by the bonds of the road and the shared belief that taking care of each other mattered more than corporate policies or profit margins. "Let's go look at a truck stop," she said with growing confidence. The convoy that followed Hannah to Route 66 stretched for several miles, creating an impressive procession of support and solidarity. Jerry Patterson, a grandfatherly man with kind, twinkling eyes, was waiting for them with a welcoming smile and open arms. "My grandson Tommy was at Sullivan's this morning when everything happened," he said, shaking Hannah's hand warmly. "He saw the entire confrontation and called me immediately. This place has always been about treating people like family, Hannah. I think you will fit in perfectly here." The ownership transfer papers were signed that same afternoon in a brief but meaningful ceremony. Within 30 days, Hannah's family truck stop would be officially open for business under new management and ownership. 6 months later, Sullivan's corporate truck stop sat completely empty, its windows covered with multiple for-lease signs, a stark monument to what happens when businesses forget that long-term success is built on genuine human connections and community relationships, not just quarterly profit reports and operational efficiency metrics. Meanwhile, Hannah's establishment had become the most popular and well-respected stop on Highway 95, with Sarah's CB radio displayed proudly behind the main counter as a permanent reminder that family comes in many different forms and that kindness creates lasting bonds. Drivers still called her Angel, but now they proudly added Boss to the title. Every morning, as Hannah unlocked the doors and turned on the industrial coffee makers, she remembered what her grandfather used to say. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes of all. Michael Noonan had gotten completely back on his feet, landing a steady, well-paying route with an excellent transportation company. But he still stopped by every Tuesday and Friday, not because he needed to, but because family is family. And at Hannah's place, everyone who walked through those doors was considered family. The guardian of mile marker 142 had found her true calling in life, proving that when you consistently lead with your heart and treat others with dignity, and respect, the road always leads you home to where you belong. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.